Today I want to talk about something completely different. Let me get a share screen going. The space station. So I'm sure you've all seen some kind of science fiction movie where they had a big ring in space that was spinning, and this produced the artificial gravity through uh, centripetal acceleration as things are flung out in the rotating cylinder. Um, And clearly we can't use Unity's gravity, so we'll have to make it ourselves. I didn't have a model of a space station that was suitable, so I had to make one. I did this with a relatively simple maker script that instantiated a whole bunch of prefab beams and a ring around the object, placing caps over the closed sides uh, of the cylinder, so it's actually more of a wheel than a cylinder. And then for fun, I just have a bunch of stuff that falls down inside the scene. So I have my beam and the caps, prefabs, and the various objects, how many I want, what the intervals are, radius, circumference, other things that kind of define the circular shape, building it on the awake function, basically going around the circle and instantiating the beams and orienting them in the proper way. And naming them and making them children of the maker object, and then putting caps on the sides that are appropriately scaled to close the wall. And then, of course, spawning a whole bunch of objects that fall down. And this is what it ends up looking like, basically a wheel with stuff inside it that is falling radially out from the center. So the first time I did this, I put the gravity on the maker object, and it handled the gravity for all the rigid bodies it could find in the scene. So we find all the rigid bodies. We turned off their rigid bodies' use of gravity. And then in the fixed update function, we formed a direction from the center to the object's position and applied a radial force in that direction. But a centralized script is a potential bottleneck. Plus, I have to treat the rigid body objects differently than my character. So I ultimately decided to decentralize it, where each object subject to space station gravity would have its own script taking care of the details. I have two scripts for this, one gravity for objects and the other gravity for player. And the gravity for objects is a pretty simple version of the centralized script. Here, instead, finding the maker, the object at the center, turning off my use of gravity, getting a direction between that maker and where my rigid body object is, and applying a force in that direction. So that's pretty simple for the falling objects in my world. Gravity player is a little more complex, since I have to distinguish between when the player is falling and presumably uncontrollable, and times when the player is grounded and hence can be driven around. And originally I'd hoped for a character controller player, but that didn't seem to work, since the character controller seems specifically to be designed for an upright in the Y direction character. So instead, I had to go to a rigid body controlled player. I broke this into two pieces. One kind of the mover script that's going to take the input. This has various settings for the forward force and the rotate torque, as well as its jump force, and an exposed variable gravity that I'm going to set with a different script, as well as this grounded. So again, making sure the rigid bodies is kinetic is false. And in the update function, catching horizontal and vertical into torque and move direction. And if it's grounded, I'm controlling it. Test grounded is a little function I'll show you in a second. And so in the update, I catch the input and set these torques and directions. And in the fixed update, I apply the force and the torque that's going to move my character forward or backward and apply the rotational torque. Now and here's test grounded. It's just a ray cast down a short distance, 1 meter. And if it hits something, it's grounded. If it doesn't, it's not. And that is returned for use up here. Now, the gravity player script is the one that reads grounded from the kinetic rigid body mover, and it's also responsible for setting the gravity on that kinetic rigid body mover. So it's going to get whether it's grounded from the mover, and it's going to assign the gravity that the mover will use when it pulls the character down. So in start, again, I've got to find the maker. I've got to set my own rigid body and get the kinetic rigid body mover. And then in the update, I get from the mover whether I'm grounded or not. I get the vector from the maker to where I am, and with a little bit of arithmetic and a rotate around, I get a direction. I get my character oriented so that it's falling down. And if I'm not grounded, I apply a force in the direction normalized. And if I am grounded, I have the option of changing that force. It turns out I didn't need to, but anyway. So here's what this looks like. Let me do the simple one here. So this is a little, this makes a ring. Here you can see the ring out here. I'm standing on a little platform here in the center. And as I step off the platform, my character falls down to the ring made of beams, the various objects here. And as I run across this, I can jump, and it follows some kind of arc across the spaceship. Whoops. And because this is a rigid body character, it's a little twitchy in terms of its control. I do need to fiddle with some of that. If I jump far enough here, I think I'll actually flip over and come down on the other side. So this worked okay. It's a little kludgy. And of course, there's one with a fancy lunar skybox that I found somewhere. And so now we have this space scene out the sides of my skybox. And when I look out the window, the world is all askew. So that was my first cut at this. I'm going to stop sharing at this point, and I'll come back in with a second version of this. Stop recording. I'll see you in class. Bye.